When my kids were little, so it was probably about, 20 years ago or so, I was coming down one morning into our kitchen to begin the breakfast show. And for those of you who have kids, you know that's like the morning rush to get everybody out the door and to work and to school and all that. And so I'm coming down to make breakfast. And the first thing we do in my house is we make coffee. Any other coffee? We're snobs. Like, we're snobs about it. It's 1 cup at a time, and you pour the water in the boiling water in that filter, and very carefully. Well, so I'm doing a million things, and I pour the boiling water in that coffee filter with the grounds, and I knock it over onto my arm. And so now I have boiling water that hit my arm, and coffee grounds, and it. Anybody ever been burned before? Right, really hurts, right? And so I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And so I quickly grab some ice and I put it in the sink with water, and I stick my hand in that, right? The ice makes it feel so good. So and then I just carry on doing what I'm doing with this hand. Well, Philip comes down and he looks at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "Well, I burned myself, but I don't feel anything right now, so I must be okay." Well, he moves the ice cubes out of the way, and then he looks in there and he goes, "I'm seeing parts of your body I'm really not supposed to be seeing." It's like, skin layers had come off, and there was like a little vein that did this, and is that blessing you? You're welcome. And he goes, "This is not good." She goes, "I'm calling the doctor." So he calls the doctor and at the hospital, and they said, "Well, look at the burn, and if it actually goes all the way around her arm, then she needs to come in, because if it goes all the way around, her hand could swell up and fall off or something." And I had plans for that day with both hands, so we decided we should go. And so we wrapped it with, ice and a towel, and we go to the emergency room. And when you go to the emergency room, if you're not bleeding in 9 places, then you're at the bottom of the line, right, to get there. So I'm waiting, and now the ice is melted, and I'm in agony. It's the most horrible feeling. If you've been burned, you know what I'm talking about. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. And so I'm in all this agony, and finally they see me. And so the lady looks at it, the doctor looks at it, she goes, "Yes, you know what, it's pretty bad." So they put all this stuff on it, and then they wrap it up, and she tells me that, "I'm going to give you some pain medication." And I'm thinking, bring it on. Now, I've actually never had pain medication before. At this point, I hadn't both of my kids at home. I'm one of those stupid people, and the no drugs kind. And so, but I'm in such pain here. And she says, "I'm going to give you some." And I'm like, "Please hurry." And she said, "Well, I'm going to give you a shot of Demerol." Again, I've never had that before. And she said, "Here's what's going to happen, Holly, is that you're going to start to feel a little woozy." I'm like, "Hurry up. I want that feeling right now." So they give me a shot of Demerol. Well, my body begins to react to it. And sure enough, I start to feel a little woozy, but my blood pressure begins to drop, and then it drops to 50/20, and then I go into cardiac arrest. So I'm laying there on this gurney, and I can feel Philip's breath like right here in my face, and he's saying things like, "She doesn't look very good." I'm like, "This is really helping me, hon. Thanks for that." And then I start to hear noise like, "We need help in here." And I just start to laugh on the inside. I'm thinking, this is an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Right? A woman goes in for burn and has a heart attack. Right? So, they do whatever they need to do to bring me back. So today, I'm very grateful to be breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. But you know what? That's actually not the only kind of life that Jesus came to give us. He came to give us a little more than just the breathing in, breathing out kind of life. In John 10:10, says the thief comes only in order to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus says, "I have come that they may have and enjoy life and have it in abundance to the full till it overflows." So the first part of that verse talks about the thief. Let me ask you, have you ever had anything stolen from you before? Probably in about year 10 of the church, one morning, Philip and I were driving to church, and we were driving to church, and we come across what looks to be a homeless person and a homeless man, and he's got a shopping cart, and inside the shopping cart was a keyboard. And we just thought, wow, that's interesting. Like, he doesn't have a home, but he's got a keyboard. I guess, okay. And so we just, and then we get to church, and then the team out front went, "Hey, we were just robbed, and somebody stole our keyboard." And we went, wait. Well, it's gone now. So now, we put an alarm then. Better late than never with the alarm. And then Just a few years ago, Philip's and my identity was stolen, and we had to deal with all the mess of that. And then just last month, someone broke into our garage and stole Philip's bicycle. Not mine. I guess they didn't want the cute one with the cute little basket. They just, it must have been a dude. But when you think about thief, when you hear the word thief, just even that word, right? It stirs up some very frustrating emotions. You probably can't say the word with a smile on your face. And so, when someone stole the bike or stole our identity, I wasn't happy. I was frustrated. It's like somebody had taken something of value from me. But there have been other thieves in my life, perhaps more damaging than the loss of material stuff. The thief of wasted time has robbed me of precious moments that could have been better spent. The thief of bitterness has robbed me of my peace. The thief of apathy has robbed me of purpose. The thief of fear has robbed me of being able to love people freely. The thief of despair has robbed me of joy. The thief of doubt has robbed me of faith. The thief of discouragement has robbed me of passion. And the thief of isolation has robbed me of community. And I think these are just those subtle thieves that eat away at our character and our personality and our purpose. And unfortunately, I don't think I've been as angry or frustrated over the loss of those like I was of my stuff. But honestly, those thieves have caused much more damage in my soul. What about you? Wouldn't it be great if we had like an alarm system for those kind of thieves? Like, beep, 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 beep. Your joy is about to be stolen. Pay attention. Get out of here, thief. Beep, 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 beep. Right? Well, the thief that Jesus is talking about, he wants to steal from you. He wants to destroy your peace, your joy, and your faith. So back to John 10:10, it says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. So Jesus has opened the door to this abundant life. The thief closes the door, but Jesus opens it. And he says in Revelations 3:8, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. So Jesus opens the door to an abundant life. And so what is it that he's offering us? What is it he's offering you and me in abundance? Well, I think he opened the door to abundant peace. Peace is not the absence of war, like darkness is the absence of light. Peace is not refraining from punching your neighbor when his dog digs a hole in your new lawn. Peace is not avoiding a fight with your spouse by avoiding that hot topic. Peace is not found in the stillness of a mountain meadow or the stream of a warm bath or, the spa music as you take a bath. Peace is actually found only in God. It's estimated that in all of the history of humanity, less than 8% of recorded history can be described as times of peace. In the last 32 centuries, there have been fewer than 300 years of peace. And historians tell us that within the last 300 years, there have been 286 wars in Europe alone. And from 1500 BC to AD 1860, more than 8,000 treaties of peace were signed, meant to remain in force forever, but the average time they actually remained in force was 2 years. Because the truth is, people on our own, we don't get along with each other. Our courts are full of people who can't get along. We fight and we bicker and we criticize and we tear each other down. We have a hard time on our own living in harmony and peace. And it was into this world filled with squabbling and tension that God sent his personal, visible representative of peace on earth, goodwill toward men. So Jesus came to proclaim peace. Do you know what I think? I think if God all of a sudden stopped all of the wars in the world right now, it actually would not be very long before they started again. Because the issue is us. Like peace in our own soul. And you can't have peace in your own soul until we've actually received the peace that comes from God. We'll never have peace with each other until we have peace with God. And Easter is the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. So that stone was rolled away from the tomb, and that is the greatest open door ever. He came to bring peace between God and man. Peace on earth. Peace on earth. And it starts with peace in our own hearts. You might have heard that God is mad at you. Can I just tell you, he's not? No matter what anybody has ever told you, God is not mad at you. Even if you have been far from him for years, he loves you. He's excited to see you. And I actually just want to take a moment and apologize to those of you who might have had a bad experience in church. I'm sorry. Because to the best of our ability, we labor week in and week out here at Oasis to bring encouragement and hope. And I'm sorry if there have been people in your past or whenever that have overcomplicated a relationship with Jesus. Jesus said this. He said in John 14, I'm leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give isn't like the peace the world gives, meaning the world peace isn't going to last, but mine will. He's saying, so don't be troubled or afraid. There's a story of a father and his son told in the Gospels. And the son is deaf and mute and also suffers from seizures that torment him suddenly. And when they attack him, he's thrown into a fit, and he's probably foaming at the mouth. And so you just think about that. He's robbed of his childhood. He doesn't get to play with other children, and day after day, his life is the same. There's no escape, there's no release, no peace. And the father, he's been robbed of the simple joy of playing with his son, of having fun conversations and playing games with him. And I'm sure the father worries about who's going to take care of his son after he passes away or his wife does. He has no peace. And then this father hears that Jesus is in town, and so he comes to him hoping that Jesus can do something. And he begs, as only a parent in deep pain could. And he says, if you can do anything, Jesus, take pity on us. If you can. And then Jesus says to him, everything is possible for him who believes. And the father is so honest. I love this. He says, I do believe. Can you help me in my unbelief? I love that honesty. And so then Jesus rebuked that evil spirit, that thief that had been tormenting the boy, and the boy was completely healed, restored. He experienced abundant peace. Maybe you're in here and you are overwhelmed with worry. About the loss of a job, or you can't get a job, or overwhelmed with worry about your family or a diagnosis or what decision to make. Jesus came to bring peace. Everybody take a deep breath and just let the Prince of Peace put peace in your soul. And then Jesus opened the door to abundant grace. All right, see how many of these common phrases that we often hear that you can complete, okay? If it sounds too good to be true, there is no gain without. God helps those who. All right, so everything about the American way perhaps teaches us this simple truth. In life, you get what you earn, you get what you work for, you get what you pay for. I guess there's nothing wrong with that, and maybe that is the American way. But the problem is that many people think the same way that you relate to your paycheck or to your possessions is the way that you relate to God. But see, God does not relate to us based on our goodness. He relates to us based on his grace. And this is what is unique about Christianity. Because only Christianity claims that God's love comes free of charge with absolutely no strings attached. He loves you just like you are. Ephesians 2 says this, God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we've done, so none of us can boast about it. I love that verse. It just drips of grace. There's nothing we can do to earn a relationship with God. He did the work already. He extended grace to us. Now, the Greek word for grace is the word charis, and it means a favor freely done without claim or expectation of return. He just gave it, grace. There's an author named Timothy Paul Jones, and he writes this story. He says, our middle daughter had been previously adopted by another family. And he said, I'm sure this couple had the best of intentions, but they never quite integrated their adopted child into their family of biological children. And after a couple of rough years, they dissolved the adoption, and we ended up welcoming an 8-year-old girl into our home. For one reason or another, whenever our daughter's previous family vacationed at Disney World, they took their biological children with them, but they left their adopted daughter with a friend. Usually, at least in the child's mind, this happened because she must have done something wrong that precluded her presence on the trip. And so by the time we adopted her, she had seen many pictures of Disney World, and she had heard about the rides and the characters and the parades. But when it came time to pass through the gates of the Magic Kingdom, she had always been the one left on the outside. Well, once I found out about this history, he said, I made plans to take her to Disney World the next time that it was going to be possible. And he writes, because of previous experiences taking our other children to Disney World, I thought I had mastered all of the pre-Disney trip excitement. What I didn't expect was that the prospect of visiting this dream world would produce a stream of downright devilish behavior in our newest daughter. In the month leading up to our trip to the Magic Kingdom, she stole food when a simple request would have gained her a snack. She lied when it would have been easier to tell the truth. She whispered insults that deeply hurt her older sister. And as the days on the calendar moved closer to the trip, her mutinies multiplied. Well, a couple of days before our family headed to Florida, I pulled her into my lap to talk to her through her latest escapade. I know what you're going to do, she stated flatly. You're not going to take me to Disney World, are you? The thought hadn't actually crossed my mind, but her downward spiral suddenly started to make some sense. She knew that she couldn't earn her way into the Magic Kingdom. She had tried and failed that before, so she was living in a way that placed her as far as possible from the most magical place on earth. Instead, I asked her, is this something that we're doing as a family? And she nodded her head. And then I asked her, are you part of this family? And she said, yes. Then I said, well, then you're going with us. Sure, there might be consequences to help you remember what's right and wrong, but you're part of our family. We're not leaving you behind. Now, I'd like to say, he writes, that her behaviors grew better after that moment, but they didn't. Her choices pretty much spiraled out of control at every hotel and rest stop all the way to Florida. Still, we headed to Disney World on the day we had promised, and it was a typical, exhausting Disney day. Well, in our hotel room that evening, a very different child emerged. She was exhausted, she was pensive, and a little weepy at times. But her month-long facade of rebellion had faded, and when bedtime rolled around, I prayed with her, and I held her, and I asked her, so, how did you like your first day at Disney World? Well, she closed her eyes and snuggled down into her stuffed unicorn. And after a few moments, she opened her eyes and said, Daddy, I finally got to go to Disney World. But it wasn't because I was good, it was because I'm yours. It wasn't because I was good, it's because I'm yours. And that is the message of abundant grace. Abundant grace isn't a favor that you can achieve by being good. It's a gift you receive. It's a one-way love that calls you into his kingdom, not because you've been good, because we'll never be good enough, but because God has chosen you and he's made you his own. And you know, this isn't merely what God would do, it's actually what he did do. He already bridged that gap. You know, in John chapter 4, we learn of a woman who was an outcast, and she was looked down on by her own community. And her past included immorality and loneliness and a broken heart and a series of very bad decisions. She'd been married 5 times, and now she was living with a man. And Jesus sits down to talk to her in the longest recorded conversation between him and anyone. And by the end of that conversation, she is filled with hope because all of a sudden she understands that she's forgiven and that her future can be bright. Jesus opened the door of abundant grace. So I don't know everyone in here, but I imagine most of us have made some bad decisions. Anybody ever made a bad decision, or is it just me? The rest of you are lying, and that's a really bad decision. You know, maybe you're feeling isolated and alone, or just maybe you're feeling far from God. Well, his grace is available to you. So his grace accepts us and loves us. It's a gift. And his grace sustains us, keeps us. Anybody ever been overwhelmed? Just felt like you had one thing after the other coming at you? Well, that's when his grace sustains you. You know, I have, a couple of years ago, Philip and I just had probably the worst year of our 33 years in ministry. And it started with my father passing away. And he passed away suddenly. he fell and hit his head and basically had a brain bleed. And my father was just one of my favorite people. He loved me very well, and I'm aware that that's a real blessing, that there are many people who never experienced the love of a father. And so I was very well loved by my dad and very thankful for it, and so his passing away was a real loss for me. So I'm navigating the grief of that, and it's right when I'm navigating that grief that our identity gets stolen, and somehow they managed to hack into our bank account and stole our savings account. And the FBI got involved, and ultimately we never actually got that back. And then kind of right when we're dealing with the grief and the bank account stuff, then Philip gets diagnosed with cancer. And then we go through the treatments of that, and he's just finished the treatments, and right after he finished the treatment, his immune system was so compromised because of the treatments that he actually gets shingles. And we didn't know what it was for a while, but then we realized it was, and it was like one of the worst cases, the doctor said. He couldn't really walk or function for 4 months. And men are amazing until they're sick. And then, you know what I mean. And so I'm doing my best to navigate him and help him and then help with the church. And so it's just this really tricky, challenging situation. And then in the midst of this, there were some people who probably would have been great if they'd had my back and would have covered us. Instead, they ended up stabbing us in the back. And so I experienced just a real hurtful betrayal. So it felt like there was one punch after another, like I was getting no breath. And I remember one moment I'm sitting up in my room and I open my Bible. And I open it up in 2 Corinthians 12. This is the Apostle Paul writing this. Now, the Apostle Paul also experienced so much challenge in his life, from shipwrecks to beatings to, he also went through betrayal and pain. So he experienced his own. And this is what he writes. He said, basically, Jesus is talking to him. Each time he, being Jesus, said, "My grace is all you need." He said, "My power works best in weakness." So now Paul writes, "I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me." So I think when we're actually at our weakest and we're honest about being at our weakest, that's when God shows up and shows off, and his grace actually can fill us. So many times we just do so much in our own strength, and we feel like we're just getting beat up. It's so hard. And as soon as you get to the point where you go, I got nothing, then that's when God says, "Here I come. My grace will sustain you right now. Here I come." So his grace accepts us, loves us. His grace is extended to us as a gift, and his grace sustains us, carries us through what could be some of the most challenging situations. So Jesus opened the door to abundant peace, abundant grace, and he opened the door to abundant hope. Man, it can be hard to watch the news today, right? There are just so much tragedy and so many disasters on the earth today, from earthquakes and tsunamis and murders and chemical attack, and there's so much disease and heartbreak. And with social media, we can find out in seconds what's happening around the world, the challenges that are happening around the world. So it just seems like there is no hope for us as a planet. We are not well, right? So we have these very big scale losses and pains, and then there's also the millions of small, unpublicized, but very personal devastations. Maybe a marriage falls apart, or a family business closes, or a company downsizes and you lose your job. Or maybe a single mother is looking at the mail knowing that there's going to be way more bills than money in her account. Or perhaps a teenager is writing a letter telling his family he just doesn't know how he can go on. Or there's an addiction that has a hold of a loved one, or a doctor writes cancer on a lab report. So there are these big scale devastations and personal ones. And in a world filled with tragedy and loss and failure, does hope even seem possible? Well, this verse kind of spoke to me in the midst of some of the challenges that I went through in Lamentations 3. This is the prophet Jeremiah who's writing this, and he says this: "I'll never forget the trouble, the utter lostness, the taste of ashes, the poison I've swallowed. I remember it all. Oh, well, how I remember the feeling of hitting the bottom." Anybody ever know that feeling? I love that the Bible is so honest with its language. And then he goes on to say, but there's one other thing I remember. And remembering, I keep a grip on hope. God's loyal love couldn't have run out. His merciful love couldn't have dried up. They're created new every morning. How great your faithfulness. And then he says, I'm sticking with God. I say it over and over. He's all I've got left. God proves to be good to the man who passionately waits, to the woman who diligently seeks. It's a good thing to quietly hope for help from God. So at the same time that Jeremiah, who's wrote this, is describing his struggle, he also writes words so equally full of confidence. So how can he do that? Because I think the difference between absolute despair and confidence in the future is hope. And let's be sure that we know what hope is and what it isn't. First, hope, the kind of that the Bible talks about, is not optimism. It's actually greater than optimism. Now listen, optimists are great. I'm an optimist. We see the glass half full, amazing, amazing, amazing. Yay! But the hope in the Bible is much stronger than that. Because for all their similarities, hope and optimism are actually a little bit different. See, optimists think they can, or optimists think others will, but those with hope know that God will. When your hope is in what God can do, then you aren't just wishing. And the truth is, we've all lost hope at some point in our lives. I mean, I don't know what you had come your way this year. Maybe you trouble in the home. Maybe your child isn't acting right. Maybe your parent doesn't understand. Maybe you've lost a job or can't find one. Maybe the dream in your heart just seems so far from reality. Maybe there's you just so much fighting and arguing going on around you. Maybe you just feel like you're about to go under. Maybe you just feel isolated and alone. Well, there are plenty of people who have attended Oasis and attend Oasis who've gone through and experienced those situations. And you know what? Most of them got through it with hope. 1 Peter 1:3 says, let us thank the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. It was through his loving kindness that we were born again to a new life and have a hope that never dies. And this hope is ours because Jesus was raised from the dead. So many of us in here need hope. Maybe you're parenting young children and you just need hope that one day they'll be responsible adults. Yay! Or maybe you just need hope that your life really does matter. Maybe you're under financially and you need hope that there's a better day coming. Well, in the New Testament, the word that's translated hope actually means confident expectation. It is knowing that God will do what he said he would do. See, in our society, hope often carries the weak idea of wishful thinking. We say, I hope so. And what we really mean on the inside is, I don't think so. Right? But that's not the hope that the Bible is talking about. When you talk about hope, and then the Bible talks about hope, it is a firm expectation. And that has a profound influence on the way we live our life. See, I know this, that after all the trouble in our world and our country, and after all that's gone on in our homes and our lives, the reason that we're still here today is because the Lord has been on our side. 1 Samuel 2:8 says this, he puts poor people on their feet again. He rekindles burned out lives with fresh hope. Isn't that a great picture? Restoring dignity and respect to their lives, a place in the sun. 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And what I was looking for in the middle of that battle, as I went through hundreds of doctor's visits and navigated that journey, what I was looking for in the midst of all that pain was hope. And I've talked to so many people who have been diagnosed with serious illnesses, and most of them are just looking for genuine hope. And that's actually just as important as anything my doctor prescribed. A man named Jerome Groopman, who was a Harvard Medical School professor, he wrote a book called The Anatomy of Hope. And he was asked for his definition of hope. And he replied, basically, I think hope is the ability to see a path to the future. I think hope has been, is, and always will be the heart of medicine and healing. We could not live without hope. Even with all the medical technology available to us now, we still come back to this profound human need to believe that there is a possibility to reach a future that is better than the one in the present. That's the confident expectation that God will do what he said he would do. Jeremiah 29, God promises, for I know the plans I have for you. put your name in there. For I know the plans I have for you, Elise. I know the plans I have for you, Jerome. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. There is hope for your dreams. You know, maybe you have some dreams in your heart that have just been crushed by life, by disappointment. Can I just ask you, please don't stop dreaming. Don't stop dreaming. Don't confuse delay with the end. You know, the disciples thought it was all over when Jesus died on that cross. But a few days later, everything changed. Yes, Friday was a reality, but Sunday was coming. Don't give up hope. You know, maybe you had a business that failed. Do you know 90% of first businesses fail? And do you know that 90% of second businesses succeed? Yet, 80% of business owners never actually try the second time, because they failed to realize that they were just a few no's away from seeing their business succeed. So I want to let you know your best days are ahead of you. God has a plan for your life, and He is equipping you to live it out. So quit looking at what's wrong. Listen, it's so easy to look at what's wrong, but let's be a people who thank God for what's right. Find something we can be grateful for. Get up every day expecting God's favor. Because you have two choices. You can roll out of the bed and have this about today, or you can roll out of the bed and have a yippee about today. It is entirely your choice. And see, sometimes people look at me and they go, well, you're just a happy person. No, I choose happy. I choose joy. I wake up just like you. I face just as many challenges that you face, and I have to choose joy. That is the steel rod that holds you straight up when life comes at you. Don't give up. What I know is that He will make sure that the dreams He's placed in your heart will come to pass. Ephesians 3:20 says, now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work in us. And the thing is, I can imagine really good. I got a big imagination. But what this is saying, He'll do immeasurably more. That's the God we serve. Jesus opened the door to abundant peace and abundant grace and abundant hope. So I'm just saying, let's walk through that door. What do you say? Let's walk through that one. And then I just want to close with this thought. Do you know what? This door, the door of this church, is open for you. It's open for you, just as you are. You know, Los Angeles, amazing city. How many of you were actually born and raised in Los Angeles? Awesome. How many of you moved here from, you were born in America, but you moved here from another part of the United States? Awesome. Aren't you glad for our winters here? Just thought I would. I torment all my friends who live on the East Coast and in Canada with pictures of today, because they're having blizzards right now or someplace in Canada. I'm so sorry for you. How many of you actually were born in another country and you live here now? Yay, welcome, welcome. So LA's a big city, and so many people move here and with dreams in their heart, and it's very easy to get lost. It's very easy to get lost in the crowds. But you know what? The door of this church is open. It's open for you to actually be a part of a community of real people. Real people. Messy people, happy people, grumpy people, real people. Doing life together. Not perfect. Which is why you hear us talk about connect groups or growth track. It's a way to make a big world small so you can connect in, be a part of family. And we have an amazing team of leaders and people here who come alongside you and help you walk out the plan that God has for your life, His purpose for you. The door of this church is open to you, just like you are. I'm going to pray. Father, I thank you for your word. I thank you, God, just for the gift of Jesus. And I thank you for peace. You opened the door for peace. You paid the price so that we could have peace with God. And I thank you, Jesus, for grace. You love us just as we are. And I thank you for hope, that we have a future filled with hope. And God, as a group of people, we make a decision to walk through those doors.